Resuming debate, the honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to rise today in support of Bill C-376, the Sikh Heritage Month Act, put forward by the honourable member from Surrey Newton. Sikh Heritage Month would give Canadians the opportunity to learn about the history of Sikh Canadians and the many contributions they have made in shaping Canada into the great country it is today. Sikhism began around 1500 Common Era, when Sikhism's founder Guru Nanak Dev Ji began teaching the faith. The practices were formalized by Guru Gobind Singh Ji in 1699. The 10th Guru Gobind Singh Ji formed the Khalsa Panth and introduced the 5 Ks that help form the identity of the Sikh. Women have always played an equal role in Sikhism. The first Guru Nanak Dev Ji described women's greatness when it is said in Gurumukhi, "So kyo manda akhiye jit jame rajan." And today, we recognize the same principle of gender equality in Canada. It is clear that Sikh values reflect Canadian values. Sikhism emphasizes the principle of volunteership, giving back to the communities and providing a helping hand to those in need. And that is perhaps why the impact of the Sikh community has been so pronounced in Brampton South. For example, from blood drives and organizing mass bone marrow registration events as done by Match for Marrow, to raising funds for our hospitals and raising funds for natural disaster relief, and contribution from Sikh Canadians to Brampton have been tremendous. That is why this bill is so important. It provides us with an opportunity to recognize all those that work tirelessly to make our communities better and contribute so much to our country's social, economic, and cultural fabric. Canada is at its best when we commit ourselves to our principle of diversity, inclusion, and multiculturalism, when we can recognize one another's contributions, struggles, history, and dreams. It makes our country better. As our Prime Minister says, Canada is stronger because of our diversity, not in spite of. The Sikh Canadians community has a long and proud history since the first Sikh immigrants arrived in Canada in 1904 and established themselves in British Columbia. More than 5,000 South Asians, greater than 90% of them Sikhs, came to British Columbia before their immigration was banned in 1908. The discrimination against Sikhs was most pronounced when in 1914, the Kamagata Maru, a Japanese ship carrying hundreds of Sikhs fleeing from India, was turned away by Canadian authorities. The decision would have deadly consequences for many on board. For that, our Prime Minister apologized in 2016 on behalf of the Canadian government for this horrible act. Despite facing discrimination, Sikhs established themselves and by 1908 built their first permanent Gurdwara in British Columbia. Even though the life in Canada for the earliest Sikh Canadians was difficult, they remained proud of their country. With their dedication and commitment to their new country and with personal sacrifice, early Sikh immigrants to Canada laid the groundwork for their generations and for the future generations. During the First World War, Sikh Canadians were on the front lines with the Canadian Armed Forces. A chance discovery of the Victory Medal that belonged to Private Bukam Singh has highlighted an forgotten tale of the Sikh Canadian soldiers who fought for our country during the war. Sikh Canadian soldiers have proudly served in Canadian Armed Forces for decades. Indeed, our Minister of National Defence is a shining example. In 2011, the Minister became the first Sikh to command a Canadian Army Reserve Regiment. And in Cabinet, Minister of Natural Resources, Minister of Science and Economic Development, and our House Leader, we are all proud of them. After the Second World War, life for Sikh Canadians began to change. By 1947, Sikhs were able to vote in federal elections. By the 1960s, immigration laws were changed and racial quotas were removed. It was during this time that Sikhs were able to establish themselves across Canada, and the foundation was laid for future generation. For Sikh Canadians, this is clear today with vibrant communities thriving throughout our country. Canada holds the second largest Sikh population in the world, home to over 500,000 proud Sikh Canadians. Today, Sikh Canadians continue to make major contribution to our countries as doctors, as engineers, artists, politicians, businesses, and every field. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, we have come a long way from 1914, when a boatload of prospective immigrants from India was prohibited from landing in Vancouver. One of our goals as parliamentarians is to uphold Canadian values of acceptance. By celebrating the vibrant heritage of Sikh Canadians, we send a clear message to acceptance that makes a tremendous difference, not only for Sikh Canadians, but for everyone in our country. It gives us a platform so that we can talk about the celebrate Sikh Canadian history, beliefs, values, and heritage. Declaring April as a Sikh Heritage Month would give all Canadians the chance to learn about the Sikh culture, religion, and practices, and help create more understanding and better connections between Sikh Canadians and their neighbors from all communities. Once again, I commend my colleague from Surrey Newton for putting forward this bill and thank him for his dedication to representing his community and celebrating the diversity of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, being a Sikh Canadian myself, I believe this is a great step forward, and I'm proud to see the tremendous support that has shown for this bill. This bill will help shape our identity as Canadians and empower our youth. When our youth are able to learn about the contribution and history of each of Canada's rich and diverse populations, we are instilling and creating strong values of understanding, compassion, and caring for one another. This is a bill that embodies the Canadian spirit and one that I'm proud to support. Sikh values reflect Canadian values, Mr. Speaker. I encourage every member to the House to support this bill as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.